Where are you on the Cleveland quarterback situations? I mean, it's Kenny Pickett, it's Gabriel, it's Shedeur. Where do you land on that circus?
Imagine spending $230 million on a quarterback and getting this in return.
Watson, far side, and that is intercepted.
We took a big swing and miss with Deshaun. We thought we had the quarterback. We didn't.
That might be the understatement of the century.
There has never been a deal than what the Browns gave up and gave to Deshaun Watson. It's the biggest disaster in the history of the sport.
What do you do when you are stuck with the worst quarterback contract in NFL history, when your supposed franchise savior has just played 19 games in 3 years and can't even throw for 200 yards in a single game? You get desperate, you get creative, and you create what might be the most fascinating quarterback battle we've ever seen in NFL history. A 40-year-old Super Bowl MVP who was sitting on his couch 2 years ago, a first-round bust trying to save his career, a record-setting college star who most people think is too small to succeed, and the son of an NFL legend who mysteriously fell from a potential top 10 pick to the 5th round of the NFL draft, all fighting for one job while a $230 million mistake watches from the sidelines. So today we're going to be diving deep into the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation, a story that's so wild, so full of drama and unexpected twists that honestly Hollywood couldn't have scripted this even better. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how the Browns got into this mess, what makes each of these 4 quarterbacks so unique, and who I believe will ultimately win this battle and potentially save this franchise. And my prediction? Let's just say it's gonna surprise a lot of people. So before we get to this content, this video is sponsored. I just discovered the most terrifying thing about browsing the internet. There are companies called data brokers that sell your data. They do it without your consent, and they make billions selling it to marketers, scammers, and even stalkers. And while they're legally required to remove your info if you ask, they make the process confusing and hard on purpose. And that is why I recommend today's sponsor, Aura, to my friends and family. They take care of the hard part, automatically removing your info from these sites and keeping it off. Aura is all-in-one digital security. You may already have a digital security tool, but not having Aura is like locking the front door but leaving the back door open. With Aura, you get alerts if your personal info is found on the dark web, real-time fraud alerts for credit and banking, 24/7 monitoring to keep your identity secure, a secure VPN, antivirus, password manager, and more, US-based support available around the clock if something goes wrong. If anything does happen, Aura includes $5 million in identity theft insurance protection, and they have US fraud experts ready to help 24/7. Recently, I got scammed by a cryptocurrency email, and they drained my wallet of thousands of dollars, and ever since then, I've been using Aura to make sure that never happens to me again. And they're even willing to give you 14 days for free, which is enough time for Aura to start scrubbing your personal info off of these data broker sites without you even lifting a finger. Just go to aura.com/microphone to get your 14 days for free. That's aura.com/microphone, so Aura could start scrubbing your personal info off of these websites. And thank you, Aura, for today's sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? When the Cleveland Browns sent 3 first-round picks to the Houston Texans and handed Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed $230 million contract in 2022, they thought they were getting one of the NFL's elite quarterbacks, a game changer who would finally solve the franchise's decades-long search for a franchise QB. Instead, they got what team owner Jimmy Haslam himself recently called a big swing and a miss.
We took a big swing and miss with Deshaun. We thought we had the quarterback. We didn't. Gave up a lot of draft picks to get him, so we've got to dig ourselves out of that hole.
Man, that's about as candid as an NFL owner gets about a catastrophic mistake. And make no mistake, the Deshaun Watson acquisition has been exactly that, a complete disaster. It's very difficult to do this, but let's just put all of the allegations against Deshaun Watson aside and focus on what he's brought to the Cleveland Browns ever since he's joined the team. In return for the Cleveland Browns' massive investment, Deshaun Watson has played in just 19 out of a possible 51 regular season games since joining the Cleveland Browns. In this limited action, he's looked like a shell of a player who once led the NFL in passing yards with Houston back in 2020. Last season in particular was horrific. Deshaun Watson managed just 1,148 passing yards, 6 total touchdowns, and 3 interceptions before tearing his Achilles tendon in Week 7 against the Cincinnati Bengals. But those basic numbers don't fully capture how horrible Deshaun Watson actually was. Let's dig deeper into some stats that will make Cleveland Browns fans fans want to cry. Deshaun Watson averaged just 5.3 yards per attempt, ranking 39th in the NFL. That's bottom of the barrel production from a supposed elite quarterback. His passer rating was a putrid 79, ranking 37th league-wide. For context, that's worse than guys like Tommy DeVito and Bailey Zappi. He managed only 164 passing yards per game, which ranked 44th amongst qualified passers. There aren't even 32 starting quarterbacks in the league, and Deshaun Watson was ranked 44th. Perhaps the most telling was his pressure to sack percentage. When pressured, Deshaun Watson got sacked 28% of the time, ranking 37th in the league. This showed how his once elite pocket presence and escapability had completely disappeared. His QBR was a league worst 23.5, dead last amongst qualified QBs. For perspective, this was almost as bad as Blaine Gabbert's rookie season and was approaching Jimmy Clausen territory at a 13.8. According to ESPN research, of 386 quarterbacks to record at least 175 passes in their first 5 games of a season, Deshaun Watson ranked dead last in yards per attempt, which is not just bad, but is literally the worst in recorded history. He posted single-digit QBR performances multiple times, including an 8.5 QBR against Washington, which was the 3rd time since joining Cleveland that he's had a QBR under 10. His average time to throw was 2.95 seconds, which is the 6th longest in the league, yet he still had one of the lowest yards per attempt. This means he was holding the ball forever and still was not finding anyone downfield. And finally, a statistic you might be familiar with on this YouTube channel is Deshaun Watson's EPA, which stands for expected points added per dropback, was a catastrophic negative 0.3. To put that into perspective, that's roughly equivalent to starting each drive by spotting the opponent 3 points. And here's the craziest part of all. He's failed to throw for 200 yards in any of his 7 starts in 2024. A $230 million quarterback who couldn't even hit the 200-yard mark once all season. That's beyond disappointing, it's franchise crippling. And somehow, things got even worse. In January of 2025, Deshaun Watson suffered a setback that would rewrite the Cleveland Browns' entire offseason plan. During his exit physical, doctors discovered that he had re-ruptured his Achilles tendon. A second surgery was required, and the prognosis was grim. He would likely miss significant time in the 2025 season, possibly the entire year. The Cleveland Browns situation with Deshaun Watson wasn't just bad, it's potentially the worst quarterback contract disaster in NFL history. Let's just put this into perspective. Remember when the Philadelphia Eagles gave Carson Wentz a 4-year, $128 million contract extension in 2019, only to see him completely fall apart the next season? They ended up eating a then record $33.8 million dead cap hit to trade him to Indianapolis in 2021. Wentz never recovered his form and is currently a backup quarterback. Or how about when the Los Angeles Rams signed Jared Goff to a 4-year, $134 million contract extension in 2019, then shipped him to Detroit just 2 years later while absorbing a $22.2 million cap hit? Well, at least both the Lions and the Rams won that trade, but the case of Brock Osweiler might be the most insane. The Houston Texans signed him to a 4-year, $72 million contract in 2016 based on just 7 starts with the Denver Broncos. After one disastrous season, they were so desperate to get rid of him that they actually gave Cleveland a 2nd-round pick just to take his contract off their hands. Probably the worst quarterback situation that we've had prior to the Deshaun Watson contract is the case of Russell Wilson. The Denver Broncos took on a NFL record $85 million dead cap hit for releasing Russell Wilson in March of 2024 after just 2 disappointing seasons. The Browns would be looking at a staggering $135 million dead cap charge if they cut Deshaun Watson after the 2025 season. And for that reason, we can all agree none of these situations approach the financial catastrophe that Watson's deal represents. The fully guaranteed $230 million contract, combined with the 3 first-round picks Cleveland surrendered to acquire him, puts this in a category all its own. It's like the Browns took the worst worst quarterback deals in NFL history, put them in a blender, and somehow created something even more disastrous. With Watson's contract still having 2 years and $92 million in guaranteed money remaining, the Browns found themselves in quarterback purgatory. They still owe their fallen star $46 million in each of the next 2 seasons, with cap hits of $72.9 million in both 2025 and 2026. But it seems like they've officially given up on Deshaun Watson. And if you compare what Kevin Stefanski was saying about Deshaun Watson in the middle of the season last year to the Browns' recent decisions now, you'll understand what I'm saying. Back in October, Kevin Stefanski was straight up lying to the media, saying that he will not bench Deshaun Watson for Jameis Winston because he believed that Deshaun Watson gave them the best chance to win, continues to give them the best chance to win, and we need to play really good football at his position and at every position to be successful. Deshaun Watson himself was in denial about this situation. In the beginning of October, this was his reaction to how terrible he was.
First off, I don't hear it, I don't see it. I'm not on Twitter, I'm not on any social media or things like that. So the only time I first hear it is either you guys are bringing it up or somebody else outside, and I just don't know who it's coming from. So,
bro, saying that you're not aware of the national criticism when you're historically bad and getting paid generational sums of money is insane. And probably my favorite part was when he literally threw his head coach under the bus.
Dorsey brought all this new stuff in. Should he be the one calling the plays?
that's a Kevin question.
And now it's a little crazy because Deshaun Watson is clearly getting a little desperate. As you guys know, the Cleveland Browns recently drafted Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. They brought back Joe Flacco, who they avoided bringing back last year because apparently Deshaun Watson thought he was a threat. So the Browns front office has decided to completely revamp their quarterback room, setting the stage for what might be the most interesting QB competition we've seen in years. The Cleveland Browns' first move of the offseason was signing a 40-year-old Joe Flacco to a one-year deal worth up to $13 million with incentives. And this wasn't just a nostalgia signing. Joe Flacco was the NFL's 2023 Comeback Player of the Year with the Cleveland Browns, saving their season after Deshaun Watson went down and showing Cleveland Browns fans how good they could be with competent quarterback play. Remember how he came off of his couch in mid-November and led Cleveland to a 4-1 record down the stretch, clinching a playoff berth? We have a completely separate video on this that we uploaded 2 years ago. Joe Flacco became the first player in NFL history to have 250 plus passing yards and multiple touchdown passes in each of his first 5 games with the franchise. But the Cleveland Browns didn't re-sign him because they wanted to show Deshaun Watson they had faith in him and they didn't want him to feel threatened, which is absolute insanity. So Joe Flacco would spend the 2024 season with the Colts, and here's what makes this interesting. With the Colts, he had mixed results. He showed flashes of his old self, completing 33 of 44 passes for 359 yards and 3 touchdowns in a narrow loss to Jacksonville, but he was eventually benched after struggling with turnovers. And this sets up a fascinating dynamic with Kenny Pickett, who the Cleveland Browns acquired in a trade with the Philadelphia Eagles. Kenny Pickett was the 20th overall pick of the 2022 NFL Draft by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he brings a completely different profile to the competition. While Flacco is your classic statue in the pocket with a big arm, Kenny Pickett has mobility that could be valuable behind Cleveland's offensive line. In his rookie season with Pittsburgh, Pickett made history by becoming the first rookie QB to throw game-winning touchdowns in the final minute of the fourth quarter in back-to-back games. But Pickett has struggled with consistency and production throughout his young career, throwing just 15 touchdowns versus 14 interceptions across 3 NFL seasons. He was benched by the Pittsburgh Steelers after the 2023 season in favor of more enticing veteran options like Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. After being traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, Kenny Pickett spent 2024 backing up Jalen Hurts and earned a Super Bowl ring, though he did play very little. Now in Cleveland, he's looking to prove that he can be an NFL starter.
Handle adversity and finding ways to win. At the end of the day, that's what this league's about, winning, figuring out how to get the job done at the end of the day, whatever, the team may ask or whatever that day, may hold for you, just find a way to walk out of there, as a winner. So I think, continuing to grow, as a quarterback, as a player, is something I'm going to try and continue to do here in Cleveland.
That confidence will be tested in what's become an absolutely loaded quarterback room. If the quarterback competition was just between Flacco and Pickett, it would already be fairly compelling. But what makes the situation absolutely wild is how the Cleveland Browns doubled down in the NFL draft, selecting not one but two quarterbacks that many believe could be the long-term answer in Cleveland. Let's start with Dillon Gabriel, who the Cleveland Browns selected with the 94th overall pick in the 3rd round. Gabriel was a record-setting college quarterback who played at 3 different schools, UCF, Oklahoma, and Oregon, amassing absolutely ridiculous stats along the way. Gabriel set an FBS record with 63 career starts, throwing for an insane 18,722 yards and 155 touchdowns across his college career. In his final season at Oregon, Gabriel completed 72.9% of his passes for 3,857 yards, 30 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions, earning him Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year honors. Now you might be wondering what his weaknesses are. Well, in Dillon Gabriel's case, he's just 5'11" and 201 pounds. With bottom tier measurements in height, weight, arm length, and wingspan, the one thing he has going for himself is everyone that's seen him agrees that this guy could ball. And as a result of this, Dillon Gabriel has drawn comparisons to a lesser version of Baker Mayfield. And yes, I know that comparison will make Cleveland Browns fans cringe, but his accuracy and experience could give him an edge in this competition, especially in a Kevin Stefanski offense that prioritizes decision making and ball placement. But the biggest story of the Cleveland Browns draft, and perhaps one of the biggest stories of the entire NFL draft, was Cleveland's selection of Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round. Shedeur Sanders was once considered a top 10 pick. Some analysts even had him as the 2nd best quarterback in the draft. So how did he fall all the way to pick 144? Well, a lot of reports suggest that Sanders just didn't interview well with teams, and there were concerns about the circus that might follow the high-profile quarterback, and we've kind of seen that so far. I mean, Mason Graham was already asked about the fact that Shedeur Sanders was getting more spotlight than he was, the 1st-round pick of the Cleveland Browns.
That doesn't really matter to me. I come to play football. If the media's on me, then they're on me. If the media's not, then it's not. I'm just gonna do my job at the end of the day. But
throughout Shedeur Sanders' college career, the man's gone viral for flashing his watch, for talking about how much money he makes.
I'm gonna donate to the collector for sure. Yeah, so it's tax write-off. So yeah, y'all donate to the collective. So I'll make sure we have a super team next year.
For Tom Brady roasting him for the purchases he makes.
Tom, do you think a college kid needs a Phantom?
I think he needs to get his ass in the film room and spend as much time in there as possible. And less time in the car.
For his dad hilariously saying that his son is going to get to choose where he wants to go to, and it's going to be an Eli.
Where do you predict Shedeur and Travis going in the draft?
Top 4.
Ooh, that's pretty beautiful.
Anywhere from 1 through 4. One of them is going to be
speaking into existence.
And the latter one would not go behind 4. I know where I want them to go. So there's certain cities that ain't gonna happen.
Okay, you on point.
It's gonna be it's gonna be an Eli.
And probably my favorite example of all as to why Shedeur Sanders slid in the draft would be this interview from the Combine, and I apologize if I've shown this clip way too many times. It just drives the point home very well.
If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the culture, don't give me. You should know history repeats itself over and over and over, and I've done it over and over and over. It should be no question why an NFL franchise should pick me.
Browns general manager Andrew Berry, who had already selected Gabriel a day earlier, couldn't resist the value when Sanders continued to fall. Cleveland traded up in the 5th round, sending picks 166 and 192 to Seattle for the chance to add Sanders to their quarterback room.
We talk oftentimes about quarterback being the most important position in the sport. We obviously spent a lot of time with Shedeur throughout the process. He's highly accurate, can play well from the pocket, very productive college career, and we felt like it wasn't necessarily the plan going into the weekend to select 2 quarterbacks, but as we talked about, we do believe in best player available. We do believe in positional value, and we didn't necessarily expect him to be available in the in the 5th round.
And let's be real, Shedeur Sanders' college production is undeniable. He completed 74% of his passes for 4,134 yards, 37 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions at Colorado in 2024, playing behind one of the worst offensive lines in college football. And believe me, he's mentioned it.
I mean, how many times did Raul get touched? How many times did Raul get touched? They was able, like, of course, whenever you're able to run the ball consistently, and whenever you're able to, then that opens up the pass, you know? But it's just like you got to understand like what your team good at.
What makes Sanders such an intriguing prospect is his pocket presence and accuracy. He took a ridiculous 99 sacks over his 2 seasons at Colorado, but never seemed rattled. Scouts rave about his ball placement, timing, and ability to throw with anticipation. The only knock on Shedeur Sanders' game is the fact that currently in the NFL, I believe that every single scout wants to see a quarterback with improvisational ability, a cannon of an arm, the ability to create plays and scramble in the pocket. Pretty much they're looking for the next Patrick Mahomes, and Shedeur Sanders isn't necessarily that type of quarterback. But that doesn't necessarily mean he can't succeed at the next level or be a very good quarterback. The question is whether he can translate those skills to the NFL, where the windows are tighter and the defenses are more complex, and whether his personality, which some see as confident leadership and others see as a potential distraction, will help or hurt his chances in Cleveland. And this is where the battle gets very interesting, because in our first video from rookie minicamp, we were seeing headlines like this: Shedeur Sanders appears to be sharper than Dillon Gabriel. Kimberly A. Martin provided this update in rookie minicamp, which bear in mind only the rookies could perform in, so it was just Dillon Gabriel versus Shedeur Sanders.
The Browns strategically held a longer 7-on-7 period to accommodate the need for more reps to go around. Both Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel split about 3 dozen reps in individual drills. Gabriel took the first reps of team drills. Head coach Kevin Stefanski said, "Don't read into who goes first or second. Rookie minicamp is part competition and part instruction." Both QBs did a nice job, but the evaluation is ongoing. We're evaluating everything they do on the field, in the meeting room, and in the weight room. It's really about the body of work.
And there's this whole storyline about Gabriel taking first team reps as opposed to Sanders taking second team reps.
How do you choose that? Is it draft status? Yeah, I wouldn't look into anything. I think you'll see the whole weekend going through the spring. I mean, we don't pay too close attention to who's in there first.
But now things got a little bit more interesting. Going into OTAs, we found out what the order of the depth chart is, and it's very surprising to say the least.
In terms of their battling order in team drills, it will likely be Pickett and Gabriel, number 1 and number 2. Then Flacco and Sanders splitting the number 3 and number 4 reps. Placing a rookie with a veteran seems to make the most sense.
So Kenny Pickett and Dillon Gabriel are taking number 1 and number 2 reps when OTAs open, with Joe Flacco and Shedeur Sanders splitting the number 3 and number 4 reps at the outset. And it's just important to note where Shedeur Sanders currently is in terms of even getting a roster spot. Sanders is not even listed on the Cleveland Browns depth chart so far. It seems like he's at the very, very bottom, and he is fighting for the ability to get a roster spot. Bear in mind that teams typically have 2 or 3 quarterbacks rostered at once. You never see a team that has 4 QBs rostered. And this is what makes this QB battle so fascinating. Particularly the Dillon Gabriel Shedeur Sanders dynamic is particularly fascinating because it's so rare for a team to draft 2 quarterbacks in the same class with legitimate starter potential. In fact, when you look at NFL history, there aren't many perfect parallels to this situation. The closest comparison to this might be Washington drafting both Robert Griffin III with the number 2 overall pick and Kirk Cousins with the 102nd overall pick in the 2012 NFL draft. Everyone assumed RG3 was the franchise savior, while Kirk Cousins was just insurance. But after RG3's injuries and struggles, it was the 4th round Cousins who became the long-term starter. Washington initially valued Griffin so much more highly, but it was Cousins who actually delivered. We see the same with Sanders eventually outlasting Gabriel despite being drafted 50 picks later. While history suggests it's possible. Remember the 2016 Dallas Cowboys, who originally wanted to draft Paxton Lynch and Connor Cook as potential Tony Romo's successors. When they missed on both, they settled for Dak Prescott in the 4th round, who became an immediate star while Lynch and Cook flamed out. Sometimes the quarterback other teams passed on is hungry in a way that transcends draft position. And more recently, the 2022 San Francisco 49ers provided another intriguing parallel. They traded 3 first-round picks to draft Trey Lance 3rd overall in 2021, then watched as Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy, the very last pick of the 2022 draft, seized the job and led them to a Super Bowl. The gap between Gabriel and Sanders isn't nearly as wide as between Lance and Purdy, but it does show us how draft position can become irrelevant once players hit the field. Even the legendary Tom Brady was famously a 6th-round pick who wasn't supposed to outperform higher selections like Giovanni Carmazzi, who was 65th, or Spurgeon Wynn, who was 183rd. The point is, quarterback evaluation remains an inexact science, and sometimes the player selected later ends up being the better pro. What makes the Browns situation particularly unique is that they consciously selected both Gabriel and Sanders in the same draft, essentially creating their own in-house competition. That's a level of quarterback hunger we rarely see. But after the Watson disaster, it makes perfect sense for Cleveland to take multiple swings. And I think Deshaun Watson is really feeling the heat because he just posted this training camp video with a bunch of motivational cliches saying that he is back to throwing the football and he is going to come back better than ever. And the message is respect your journey, 40 OVE. But I don't think anyone is really taking this very seriously, considering the fact that he's already getting fully guaranteed money and he was terrible pre-Achilles tear. And when you see what the Achilles tears have done to solid quarterbacks in the past, I mean, just take a look at what happened to Aaron Rodgers this past year and take a look at what happened to Kirk Cousins this past year. Both of these quarterbacks were incredible quarterbacks before they tore their Achilles tendon. But Deshaun Watson was horrible before he tore his Achilles tendon. So could we only imagine how horrible he's going to be post Achilles tendon tear? I'm really taking this more as Deshaun Watson looking desperate as opposed to him actually trying to make a comeback. I mean, Deshaun Watson is slowly turning into the Ben Simmons of the NFL. And honestly, I don't think I could blame him. You're getting paid fully guaranteed money. There's not really any incentive for you to try anymore. So here we are, a 40-year-old Super Bowl MVP in Joe Flacco, a former first-round pick trying to salvage his career in Kenny Pickett, and 2 rookie QBs in Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, each with something to prove. Behind it looms the shadow of Deshaun Watson, the $230 million man who might not take a snap this season, but whose contract continues to dictate the Browns' long-term plans. Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski has made it clear that this will be an open competition. Everyone in that room will get an opportunity to showcase if they are worthy enough to start, setting the stage for what will undoubtedly be one of the most watched training camp battles in the NFL. Now, NFL analyst Albert Breer suggested that Flacco is in pole position to take the first snaps in spring practices, but the competition remains wide open. So here we are, the moment you guys have been waiting for, my personal prediction as to who I believe is going to win this battle. And let me give you my completely unfiltered take. In the short term, I think Joe Flacco opens the season as the starter. His experience and familiarity with the system gives him an edge, and the Browns are desperate to be competitive after going 3-14 last season. Flacco provides the highest floor of any quarterback on the roster right now, but I don't think he finishes the season as the starter. At 40 years old, Flacco's best days are clearly behind him, and the Browns need to think about the future. I believe Joe Flacco starts out really hot and maybe gives us one of those signature Joe Flacco games before he gives us a performance where he throws 0 touchdowns and 3 interceptions and ends up getting benched. I believe after that happens, Kenny Pickett will get his chance, but I once again think his ceiling is limited. In 2 years as Pittsburgh's starter, Pickett never showed the consistency or playmaking ability you'd expect from a first-round pick. His touchdown to interception ratio of 15-14 speaks volumes about his limitations as a passer. So once that happens, who would be next up? Well, Dillon Gabriel is a fascinating prospect, and I wouldn't be surprised if he sees action this season. His accuracy and experience make him more pro-ready than most rookie quarterbacks, but I think his physical limitations will ultimately prevent him from becoming Cleveland's long-term answer. Which brings us to Shedeur Sanders, and this is where I'm going to make a bold prediction that might surprise some people. By the end of the 2025 season, Shedeur Sanders will be the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback. And not only that, I believe he has the potential to be their franchise QB for years to come. And let me tell you why. First, Shedeur Sanders has all the tools you want in a modern NFL QB. His pocket presence is exceptional. exceptional. He stood tall against constant pressure at Colorado and still delivered accurate throws. His processing speed and decision-making improved dramatically from 2023 to 2024, showing he can learn and grow. Secondly, his playing style fits perfectly with Kevin Stefanski's offense. Stefanski has had success with accurate, timing-based quarterbacks like Case Keenum and Kirk Cousins in the past. Sanders' precise ball placement and ability to throw with anticipation makes him an ideal fit for a system that emphasizes quick decisions and ball distribution. Third, Sanders just has that it factor that separates good quarterbacks from great ones. The son of an NFL legend, he's been preparing for this moment his entire life. The spotlight doesn't faze him. If anything, he seems to thrive under pressure. I understand how annoying these pre-draft interviews could have been and how cocky he may seem, but if he has the talent to back him up, then that cockiness could actually be charming, and it could be a good thing to have your leader be that cocky. But I think the most important thing that Sanders didn't have before is there's the chip on his shoulder. After sliding all the way to the 5th round, Shedeur Sanders has something to prove. In his post-draft interviews, you could see the determination in his eyes.
But what fuels me is my purpose in life and understanding the route that's now that we're gonna have to take.
That kind of motivation can be powerful. Remember how Aaron Rodgers used his draft day slide as fuel for his entire career? I see similar potential with Shedeur Sanders. The path won't be easy. Sanders will need to beat out 3 other QBs, 2 of which have started in NFL games. He'll need to master a complex offense and adjust to the speed of the professional game. He'll need to overcome the skepticism that has followed him through the draft process. But I believe he has the talent, the temperament, and the determination to do it. I believe Shedeur Sanders is going to leapfrog over Dillon Gabriel to start the season and begin the season as QB3 behind Flacco and Pickett. By mid-season, as the Browns struggle to find consistency on offense, Stefanski will give the rookie a chance, and once he gets on the field, Sanders will show why many considered him a first-round talent. By week 18, Shedeur Sanders will be firmly entrenched as the Cleveland Browns starter, setting the stage for what could be a bright future in Cleveland. The Browns quarterback situation is a perfect storm of drama, intrigue, and possibility. From the spectacular failure of the Deshaun Watson experiment to the unexpected opportunity for 4 very different quarterbacks, this story has all the elements of a Hollywood script. In many ways, it's a microcosm of the Browns' overall journey, a franchise that has been searching for stability at quarterback for decades, trying yet another approach to solve the most important position in sports. Will Shedeur Sanders be the answer they've been looking for? Will Joe Flacco recapture the magic of 2023? Can Kenny Pickett resurrect his career? Or will Dillon Gabriel surprise everyone and seize the opportunity? That's the beauty of the NFL. We don't know yet, but we'll all be watching when training camp opens this summer. Let me know in the comments section down below who you think is going to win this QB battle. Aside from that, if you're a fan of baseball, we just dropped an insane video on how Trevor Bauer's career got completely ruined. I'm going to leave a link to that in the end screen, and if you guys happen to be 49ers fans, we have a video covering the brand new Brock Purdy contract. Both of these videos will be in the end screen. I'll meet you guys there. I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.